This is my fifth statement for the press regarding my SEC whistleblower claim that got Byron Brown's offices raided. I didn't know. I didn't have a TV. I didn't subscribe to any of the Buffalo News channels to even know that his offices had gotten raided by the 4 federal jurisdictions. I found out because the lieutenant, apparently after I contacted the SEC got in touch with the lieutenant governor, who isn't part of the Old Boys Club. She's a former federal prosecutor. Her husband, Bill Hochul, is the former federal prosecutor for the Western District of New York, where I filed a sealed qui tam whistleblower lawsuit. And them both being former federal prosecutors, they had their own connections within the federal jurisdictions that they had worked with probably for years that they could reach out to launch an unbiased investigation, since my whistleblower claim implicated the FBI in protecting Virginia G. Piper and Darla Munoz-Natoloi as federal investigators with Homeland Security, who ultimately made this mess in the first place. And they're trying to save Piper as an oligarch, probably for whatever kickbacks they can get out of her. And a lot of people did get promotions who turned their back on me and turned a blind eye to what was happening to me. And I'm not going to go into all of that right now. I'll go into that, into the various statements that I'm uploading for law enforcement. But basically, an investigator found me and started talking to me and asking me questions and saying he needed help with this, and I was very helpful, and he could obviously see I wasn't schizophrenic and I wasn't delusional, and I was very helpful and informative. And she sent an African American male, and he was putting his hands all over me, and he was kissing me, and I wasn't offended, and I was flirting right back, and I got the feeling that he was testing me for some reason. I didn't feel that he was really trying to put the moves on me. I felt like he was just testing me, because it didn't really feel, you can tell when somebody touches you and there's that feeling that they're trying to put the moves on you. And he wasn't, I didn't really get that feeling. And finally, after he did all this, I said, yeah, I said, I can't date you. I said, I'm in too much pain. I'm stage 4 cancer, and I'm in so much pain right now. I can barely sit here. I really can't wait for this bus so I can get home and get flat. I'm in so much pain. And I said, I can't get cancer treatment because Byron Brown and Cuomo and Letitia James are trying to kill me to hide the fact that they're participating in fraud scams with these healthcare facilities, these bogus tax-exempt nonprofits. And he says, oh yeah, I tried to tell Byron Brown and he wouldn't listen, and he said he got his ass raided by the feds yesterday. And at that point I realized that he was apparently, I had a feeling he was feeling me up for something, and he was using subtext, and that's when he went into detail about how Byron Brown was under investigation, and he was basically letting me know that I got Byron Brown's offices raided. And apparently they were watching my Facebook page, and they could see that I didn't realize that Byron Brown's shit had gotten raided. And I met with him again. He found me again at a later date and asked me how I was doing, and I said okay, and I bumped into him a couple other times, and we still didn't have a full view of everyone who was involved, and basically all of the mental health facilities were involved, from Endeavor to Spectrum to of course ECMC, and I don't remember some of the other ones, but basically I got enough audio from Endeavor. Also, Evergreen is involved as well. They're making a fortune off of their Suboxone and methadone clinics. So that's how I found out that I had gotten the mayor's office raided. I didn't notify the press that I was the one. I just let the press do their thing. Because I had 2 lives to worry about. I had to worry about well, 4 lives actually. The landlord, his wife, who was a social worker who blew the whistle and implicated United and Cuomo, and then both of the roommates. I had to determine whether they were victims. I had to, when you're an investigator, I'm not an attorney, but I can tell someone's intent. In Missouri, many of the people who were messing with me were being forced to. They came to me crying. They were my neighbors, and they would mess with me, and then they would come to me crying, saying they took our kids away from us. They're basically forcing us to screw with you, Heather, and they took our kids away. I don't have custody of my kids. And then once they promised to mess with me, Ford and at Ward and MU and CPD and MU Police Department to cover their butt, then all of a sudden they get their kids back and decided that the grandmother had heat stroke. They coerced that grandmother into damn near killing one of Beth Sweeney's patients, or one of the patients at Family Health Center, who was also a gay male prostitute, who apparently had been involved with Beth Sweeney's husband, the nurse practitioner that came on to me. And I was worried about whether my roommates in Buffalo were coerced or paid off. Was their criminal intent, or were they victims? And ultimately what I determined was that they enthusiastically participated in my murder with the Buffalo mayor. And for whatever reason, I don't know what their motive was. I don't know whether it was money, but they really were getting off on the fact that they were working with high-powered people that were in bed with the Clintons to kill a queer who wasn't getting cancer treatment. And that type of predatory behavior, it's something that you really gotta hear to believe. And unfortunately, my landlord was implicated in enabling all of that. I needed to find out how much he was involved. They kept saying that the boyfriend of Melissa Pye, who ultimately threatened me on behalf of Byron Brown, implicated the landlord by saying the landlord wasn't letting me call the police on anybody because he was operating illegally. That boarding house was illegal and he didn't want the police over there. Well, that's felony murder. If he's enabling what was the violence against me to avoid his own criminal prosecution, that's felony murder. He's still guilty as everyone else, whether he felt he wanted me dead or not. And there were certain things that made me think that he was just as much involved as the 2 roommates. And finally, one of the roommates got violent, and she was threatening me while I was in the restroom, and it was just a ridiculous situation, and I called him, and I was testing him. Sure enough, he came over there, and he went in her room, and they talked were trying to talk under their breath, so I couldn't hear them for several minutes, and I'm recording the whole thing. And then he ultimately comes out defending her, making it look like I was the one that was being unreasonable. And I said, James, she just confessed to attacking me. Before you guys went in that room, she said, yes, I went off on you. No, I'm not going to apologize. And no, I don't want to hear your side of the story. And I went in there and slammed the door. She just confessed to the violence. Don't come out here telling me that, well, if she just doesn't want to talk to you, she doesn't have to talk to you. No, what she did was she verbally attacked me. And then when I didn't know why she was attacking me and letting her know where I was coming from, she just openly said she doesn't give a shit what I had to say. She's going to go off on me, cuss me out, call me names, and then slam the door like a 3-year-old so she doesn't have to listen to what I have to say. And then you're going to come out here making me look like I'm in the wrong. She had something on him. They were doing things together that they weren't supposed to be doing. And when I put him to the test, he failed. And when I held up my court paperwork, I said, this is not a civil lawsuit. This is a criminal investigation. This is a sealed, qui-tam whistleblower lawsuit implicating the mayor and both these roommates in felony murder to hide their RICO violations. To hide basically their not the roommates' RICO violations, but Byron Brown and Cuomo's and Letitia James' RICO violations, and of course all of the previous people that had known I had cancer and was refusing me cancer treatment and refusing to do investigations and properly do oversight and give me proper whistleblower protection. I said, this is a criminal investigation. This isn't civil. I'm not suing them for money. I said, these two are under investigation for murder. He got all big-eyed and he ran back in the room, and then he came out and says, oh, we're cool. So he basically implicated himself in helping these two roommates and Byron Brown screw with me. And of course, here's the thing that the news media needs to keep in mind. Byron Brown wasn't in my exam room. How the hell does Byron Brown know what to tell those roommates to have them make up stories that I'm crazy? And the reason why he needs them to say that I'm crazy is because once I was discharged from Catholic Health after Roswell refused to accept me, and I went to Buffalo General. Originally, Buffalo General, those ER doctors got recorded coming in saying, well, we don't deal with Great Lakes. We only deal with Roswell. That's who we're partnered with. And we got your records from Catholic Health, and that doctor said he saw no evidence of cancer. And I said, I'm covered in evidence of cancer. I said, would you like to hear the recordings? And they knew I had cancer. Then they agreed to write for narcotics for the pain so I could go back to the homeless shelter and be comfortable. So I went out to the nurses' station at Buffalo General, and I said, I need the name, first and last name of both those doctors that have come in my room. I said, I've got to write them up to the DEA. They're writing for narcotics, and they're apparently going to falsify the medical records and discharge me so they can justify not getting me treated for cancer. So they're going to have to make a false diagnosis to write for those narcotics. I've got to write them up to the DEA. Boy, within 10 minutes, the doctor came in. Oh, well, we've decided you're too sick to discharge, and we're gonna admit you, and we're gonna make that referral to Great Lakes and get a Great Lakes oncologist over here. And I says, okay. So they admit me to the 15th floor, which is a medical floor. A couple of doctors come in. I record everything. They say they're going to treat me for cancer, and then the next thing I know, Joss Nassine comes in there, and I confront her. Why are you in there? I didn't ask to see a psychiatrist. Oh, well, we're worried about your mood. And then, of course, when she realized I recorded all the medical encounters and that I had evidence that proved there was no justification for them to send a psychiatrist in there, she does an involuntary committal, which means she has to accuse me of being a threat to myself or others. And I'm like, what is this evidence? You're saying I'm a threat to myself or others. What did I do to make you think I'm a threat to myself or anyone else? She wouldn't come back in the room. I recorded everything with the Buffalo General Police Department. Their police, which is basically robo-cops. They weren't really cops. They said they were licensed peace officers, not security officers. So they were actual cops. So they had to lie to those cops to justify locking me up at ECMC, and I was up there for 6 months. The only reason why I got out was because I called the Office of the Medicaid Inspector General and launched an investigation, and within a week they got me the hell out of there. So I'll continue with the next statement.